Hi everyone! Now we're going to go through and we're going to practice judging different types of speech because we like practicing at the practice space. So we are going to first watch a beginning novice student and then we're going to watch a more varsity level student. So regardless of the level, when you are judging speeches, you often will judge about 5 to 7 speeches in a row, and that can be really hard to remember. So when you are thinking about how to rank the different students, sometimes it's hard to remember the first speaker. So a pro tip, you should have a separate list of students on a little piece of notepaper and write their name, and next to their name put a dot for the first speaker, just one dot. Then watch the second speaker and compare them to the first speaker. Were they better? If they were better, put 1 dot by the second speaker and 2 dots by the first speaker. Then go to the third speaker, listen to their speech, ask yourself the same question and adjust the dots accordingly. And by the end, the magical thing is that you have your ranking right there and you don't even have to do any thinking because you have your ranks based on what was the best and what was not the best. So when we are judging, you can do that on any type of speech. Just have that little cheat sheet to the side. And that's your ranking. When we think about how to actually figure out what to comment on, we want to think about how to comment on both content and delivery, no matter the type of format of speech that you're judging. For content, we might think about things like looking at our ballot here, going to the screen. Overall comments for speaker might be related to clarity, logic and reasoning, ability to explain effectively, quality of questioning, and all of those things are about the content of the speech. It might be the cutting and how they put together the published speech or the overall theme. All of those things are things that students want comments about. The other place to make comments is delivery. And that's usually what we think about with public speaking, but just make sure there's a balance between content and delivery. Delivery is anything about their voice, their body, their speed, their enunciation, all the ways that they enhance and highlight the content of the speech. So let's watch a novice speaker.
My issue speech today is actually on a topic that's really relevant to today's event.
You can start whenever you're ready.
I want to teach the world to stand for what is right. Let me ask you this. Are you okay staying silent? Are you okay with letting these blatant injustices pass without uttering a single word? I'm not. I'm not okay with letting these perpetual injustices occur in our society without any sense of change. It's actually one of the reasons why I joined speech and debate, although it feels as if voicing my stance on this situation is much like a single drop of water in a vast ocean. I cannot bring myself to not help those in need with my words. I believe that the world does not comprehend that the littlest actions you do in your day-to-day life affect the world immensely. These little things you do can undermine the causes on a larger scale, which leads to much bigger problems. I see this often among my peers who, of course, think that racism is an issue, but still continue to make offensive jokes without any hesitation. Then, to add more fuel to the fire, those around them do not call them out on their actions. But because of what? Are they scared of the outcome after they speak something that contradicts how others feel? How are we to put an end to this behavior if we don't address it? You do not have to speak up to the national level to invoke change. Your voice is enough. Your voice has uncharted levels of influence in itself. With all that being said, what makes a situation unjust? Climate change, racism, sexism. Despite all these terrible issues, people still decide to stay silent. Is choosing not to use your voice immoral? Is it just about trying or fixing the problem? Many people do not speak up because they are unsure of what the outcome will be afterward. Others choose to not speak up simply out of fear of being criticized or ridiculed for voicing their opinions. Firstly, to understand why this problem still exists, we must familiarize ourselves with the issue's root: ethics. Specifically, deontology, the study of fulfilling your moral obligations. If we follow deontology, taking action surpasses the consequences. Experts in this field have attributed the term ought implies can to Immanuel Kant. Are you capable of speaking up? John Lewis, a civil rights activist, said, "If you see something that is not right, not fair, not just, you have a moral obligation to do something about it." Additionally, he said, "You cannot be afraid to speak up and speak out for what you believe. You have to have courage, raw courage." Speaking up is not easy, but somebody must do it. Amanda Gorman, the youngest inaugural poet, said that we will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. If we do not speak out now, we will simply be postponing the change we so desperately need. She also said, "If I choose not to speak out of fear, then there's no one my silence is standing for." How can you see such an obvious world problem, know how to fix it, and neglect it? These small inactions turn into much larger problems. Unfortunately, people can be hypocritical and contradict themselves by claiming that they support particular causes but do not speak up about them. Consequently, we will not be able to progress as a society. Speaking up impacts every cause our world faces. If no one spoke up about essential topics such as civil rights, humankind would not be in the place it is right now. Speaking up is the least you can do to better an unjust act. It makes me question people's true intentions. Are they only saying they support certain causes for some external reward? Though the world and I share many different morals and interpretations of what injustice is, we can no longer ignore the injustices at hand. Remember which values you hold and ask yourself whether you're bettering or worsening the situation by staying silent. Our world is beckoning for change to happen soon. So the question I am proposing to you today is, are you going to be part of it or not? Thank you.
So what you just saw was a type of original speech or persuasive speech known as an original oratory. And her job was to persuade me about her topic. And so looking at this little rubric here, which we use for elementary students, we can still apply this to teen speakers, but you just won't see that on Tabroom or in the Google form, unfortunately. So I think to myself, the speaker was prepared and able to perform without stumbling. I think she was maybe a little inconsistent. There were a couple of stumbles here and there, but there was some, overall was pretty smooth. So I'm going to give her a 3. The speaker communicated a compelling topic or message, so it interested or persuaded me. I think I actually would also give this one a 3. I was really interested in the topic, but it was maybe a little bit open-ended for me. So I think making it a little bit more specific would be something that I would comment on in my notes. The structure and flow of the speech was clear. I think that also might be a 3 for me because I kind of wanted to know a little bit more about her clear transitions when she was changing from idea to idea. She used her voice to enhance the speech. I think this one is a little bit more emerging, still some really good effort here, but needed a little bit more variation overall. And used her body to enhance the speech. I think this is also an area where maybe it needs a little bit more focus. She's just getting started, so maybe a few more gestures here. And the overall performance was memorable and held my attention. I'm kind of between a 3 and a 4 on this one, and so I probably would, it was pretty memorable, but I think it was maybe a little inconsistent in spots, so I'm going to give that one a 3. And in the notable elements, in your high school ballot on Tabroom, you'll just see an open feedback place. So I just still like to think about it as notable elements just to make sure I touch on a couple of really good things and then a couple of areas of growth. And you can just put all of those in the same list of bullets. But this is the ballot that we use for young speakers. Notable moments, I'd say it was just a very personal topic. It was very vulnerable. It was, it was such an important, I like the storytelling in her examples as well. And areas to focus on next, I'd probably say the transitions and then maybe a little bit more on voice variation and body and physicality. So you'll notice here that I'm only using words. In the ballot itself, please use complete sentences just so that the students can understand. But I like to write little notes to myself and then go back and edit the feedback later so that I remember what I was going to say about each speech. So now we're going to watch a varsity speaker. This type of speech is the informative speech where they're going to teach you about a topic using visual aids.
This is Harley Quinn, a crime-fighting character who appears in multiple DC comics and the TV shows that accompany them. Now, I want you to ask yourselves, what is the difference between these two photos? This should be easy enough. You probably noticed that the outfit has been completely changed. Harley's stance and expression are also distinctly different. Maybe you even noticed that the pigtails got shorter. There is one key fact that explains all of these differences. This Harley Quinn movie was written by a man, and this one by a woman. This is the perfect example of the male gaze. So today, we will learn what exactly the male gaze is and why it's so harmful. Then we'll take a look at the male gaze in advertising throughout time, and whether it has detracted from the ways of feminism. And finally, we'll explore the future of the male gaze. What kind of trajectory are we moving on, and what can we do about it? The male gaze is a term coined by filmmaker Laura Mulvey in her famous 1975 essay, Visual Pleasure and Narrative Cinema. Mulvey argued that the most popular movies are filmed in ways that satisfy masculine scopophilia, or sexual pleasure involved in looking. Women are merely added to films and media for their, in Mulvey's words, to be looked at-ness, whether that's for the men creating the media, the men in the media, or the men viewing the media. And this concept of the heterosexual masculine gaze can be extended from film to nearly any other medium. Commercial advertising, magazine covers, song lyrics, books, the list goes on. Now, there are 5 key features of the male gaze that often make it very easy to recognize. Number 1, shots that fixate on just parts of a woman's body, her legs, her breasts, her torso. Number 2, there is very frequently a man involved. Number 3, the woman's outfit is often revealing and impractical. Number 4, she typically serves as the helper, the eye candy, or the romantic interest. And finally, it often doesn't play any key role in the purpose of the media. For example, Harley Quinn wearing stilettos and jean shorts so tiny they're practically a thong has absolutely no relevance to the plot of Suicide Squad, and in fact makes it impractical and unrealistic. And yes, men are sexualized as well, but a 2018 report that analyzed 56 top-grossing films in 20 countries demonstrated the imbalance in male and female representation. 30% of female leads were shown wearing revealing clothing, compared to just 7% of men. 15% of women were shown partially nude, whereas men made up just 8% of the statistic, and women were shown totally naked 4 times as much as men were. Presenting women as objects that exist solely for the pleasure of the heterosexual male is harmful on so many levels. It strips women of their identity, agency, and personality. According to the National Sexual Violence Research Center, 1 in 5 women in the United States have experienced attempted or completed rape in their lifetime. And this dehumanization of women in the media only perpetuates this kind of sexual harassment and abuse. The male gaze also binds men to certain roles and stereotypes. The sexual pursuer, the consumer of women. Beyond that, it often only sexualizes one type of woman. Young, thin, white, perfectly adhering to whatever the beauty standard is at the time. And this can have disastrous effects on young girls' self-esteem and even fuel eating disorders and body dysmorphia. So, we've just looked at what the male gaze is, how to recognize it, and why it's harmful. Now let's take a look at how it has changed throughout time, specifically in terms of advertising, one of the easiest places to find examples of the male gaze. Let's rewind to 100 years in the past, the Roaring 20s. By the end of this decade, women had gained the right to vote, joined the workforce in massive numbers, and experienced newfound independence in their personal lives. but despite this relative freedom achieved by the first wave of feminism, success for women was still equated with daintiness, marriage, modesty, raising children. These values continued well into the 50s and were apparent in popular brand advertising. This tie ad reads, "Show her it's a man's world." And this one for women's deodorant claims, "Society simply won't stand for indelicate women." Fast forward to the second wave of feminism beginning in the early 60s. We began to challenge the idea that a woman's place was in the home, and prominent feminists such as Angela Davis and Audre Lorde helped bring women of color into the picture. But despite these advancements, the male gaze in advertising still looked very similar to the 1920s. Ads like this one for women's deodorant were hardly an improvement from the 20s one we just looked at, sending messages that romanticize male validation and confine women to stereotypes of daintiness and femininity. The 60s also marked a period of extreme diet advertising targeting women, as evidenced by this poster that claims a pear is no shape for a girl. In the 90s and 2000s, we hit a low point in commercializing women's sexuality. Rape and hostility towards women was widely accepted, even glamorized, and misogynistic stereotypes permeated the dialogue of the time. Here are some examples of problematic male gaze-heavy ads from the time that demonstrate this. This suit ad from Suit Supply illustrates an undeniable power dynamic. This beer can is literally morphed with a woman's torso, and this Dolce & Gabbana ad essentially depicts a gang rape. Ads like this normalize inappropriate behavior and use women's bodies in order to sell a product. But beginning around 2012, the fourth wave of feminism aimed to address this extreme objectification and the rise in sexual assault cases that came along with it. And to a large degree, it was successful. Roxane Gay was one of many prominent feminists of the time who actively called out the male gaze, writing in her memoir, "This is what most girls are taught, that we should be seen and not heard. And if we are seen, we should be pleasing to men, acceptable to society." So, did we see lots of the male gaze during this time? Let's take a look. In the 2010s, we actually started to see some really great examples of feminism in advertising. Always' #LikeAGirl campaign aimed to reframe the phrase, "you run like a girl," or "you throw like a girl," arguing that it should be a compliment. Goldilocks aired a commercial that encouraged young girls to pursue careers in STEM, a field in which women are significantly underrepresented. So, we've just reviewed how the male gaze has shown up in advertising across the past century, but ultimately it's been present in all kinds of media throughout time. So, where are we headed today? Are we moving beyond the male gaze, or are we seeing even more of it? On the one hand, yes, we are making progress, as we can see with the progression of brands like Thinx Underwear and Aerie, which feature on their websites all kinds of bodies with natural features like body hair and stretch marks. But in saying this, it's important to recognize that we still have a long way to go. As much as the internet has helped empower millions of women, the rise of apps like Instagram and TikTok have helped promote the male gaze through filters that enforce beauty standards and encourage body shaming. On an individual level, the most important thing that you can do is to use your voice to lift up women and to pay attention to what you're buying, supporting, and consuming. I want to see women and girls depicted like this. Real humans with personality, grit, and flaws. The next time you see an ad or watch a movie, ask yourself, is this informed by the male gaze? Try using tools like the Bechdel test, which assesses representation of women in film through 3 criteria. A, are there more than 2 women in the film who B, talk to each other about C, something other than a man? Support media that exhibits the female gaze. A great example is the TV show Fleabag, which depicts sex without over-sexualizing the main female character, and follows the life of a real 3-dimensional woman. Because that's exactly what we are. Not bodies, not silent props, not objects of desire. Real women. Thank you.
So again, with this speaker, we saw a lot of different types of content, and we also saw some pretty strong delivery. So again, as you remember, you don't have a rubric that you're working with, but this is usually what I like to do to make sure I'm consistent with myself, is I look at these different areas. So she was definitely prepared, and she performed without stumbling. I'd say it was pretty strong as well, very smooth. She also, I really like this idea of the male gaze on advertising. It's just not a topic that I've heard a lot. I've heard about advertising, but not necessarily about the male gaze on advertising. So I would give this a 5. The structure and flow of the speech was clear. I could tell where she was transitioning, and it was easy to follow the content. Probably meets here because I didn't see anything like special or different or memorable, but it was definitely easy to follow. The speaker used their voice to enhance the speech. I definitely heard emphasis and variation, but it wasn't more than meets, I think, but I definitely would give her a 4 here. Body and gestures to enhance the speech. It was so clear. She was using these gestures, and she was moving around and also using those visual aids. And overall, she was memorable, and she really held my attention. So for notable elements, I'd probably say the unique topic. I'd also say the types of examples. I really liked the conclusion and her final message. Areas to focus on next, maybe a little bit more forcefulness in her voice, persuasion in the voice, more vocal tone, I'd say, just to vary it a little bit more. And then potentially maybe a few different spots where the transition is a little bit more unusual. So transitions and special twist in those transitions. As you notice here, these are very customized to me. So I know what I'm talking about here, but for you, sometimes when you're watching this video, and it's why we're doing this exercise, you may be thinking to yourself like, wow, she's judging really harsh right here. I would have given it a 4, not a 3. And in those moments, that's you trusting yourself, and as long as you're consistent with yourself and what you prioritize, that's all you need to do as a judge. So when we watch these examples, you don't have to agree with me. It's more about thinking, all right, here's how I can be really specific with my feedback. So that's all you need to do when you're judging. Be really specific and really clear. So good luck when you're judging.